All right, hi everyone. So welcome to Infotech's panel discussion on efficient e-construction implementation. I'm here with Jefferson County, Alabama. So I'll introduce myself first. I'm Emily Knoll. I'm the customer success lead at Infotech for our construction products, and I work most closely with Appia. I was also the Infotech team member that led the Appia implementation for Jefferson County, Alabama's Department of Roads and Transportation at the start of this year. I'll let today's panelists briefly introduce themselves. George, I'm going to start with you first.
Hello, I'm George Chapman, Chief Civil Engineer for Jefferson County. We are excited. The fact is that we have a new software we put to use, a new tool that helps us more than ever.
Great, thanks so much, George. I'll turn it over to Reed next.
Hey guys, I'm Reed Coley. I'm a Principal Engineering Construction Inspector at Jefferson County.
Thanks so much, Reed. Matt, take it away.
I'm Matt Collins. I'm Senior Civil Engineer at Jefferson County.
Wonderful, thank you all, and thank you for being here today. Well, let's get started. So today we're going to have a moderated panel, and while this discussion is going on, just know any of you panelists feel welcome to jump in if you have additional insight. But we'll get this discussion started. Let's take it back a little bit by talking about your team's decision phase. So we're rewinding a little bit here. So this question is going to be for each of you because I think each of you will have a unique perspective given your roles. But I want to understand, what were the success criteria that were most important to you in evaluating an e-construction tool? George, I'll start with you first again, if that's all right.
Thank you. I appreciate it. When we were looking at it, we realized that we needed a tool. And the fact is that one of our biggest issues that we were having is that we had our goal is quality control, cost control, and transparency and through the whole of the construction phase. And at the same time, we sat there evaluating all those criteria. We realized that all those criteria were driven by one single issue, which was pay items. So we were looking for a particular tool that could at least that we could mold around and be able to checks and balances around any type of particular pay item as our contracts are structured.
Yeah. That's great. Reed, I'll go to you next again.
So I'm typically in the field, and we were really wanting a one-stop source for project details and multimedia. Wanted it to be user-friendly and try to eliminate as many paper physical documents as we could.
That's wonderful. Thanks so much. Matt?
Yes, so doing most of the Jefferson County's monthly estimates, we was wanting something that was cloud-based that anyone could access and figure out what quantities we had for the month. And we wanted access to real-time data, the to-date quantities, and we wanted estimates that could not go back and be altered or changed, that once they were paid, they were locked in.
I love that. So if I'm kind of summarizing, quality control and transparency, there was a need for a cloud-based tool so that there was a centralized location that people could see data in real time. And then the goal of eliminating paper. And then if I'm recalling too, I kind of got brought in around this phase. There was also a desire to have something that improves the quality of your bids and allowed for automated bid analysis. What was it that ultimately pushed you to select Appia? Matt, I'll start with you this time.
Okay, well, I think for us, being able to have the field inspectors look and see what the to-date quantities for everything was, because in the past they would have to have access to our S drive, is what we call it, our own computer drive that we have that wasn't cloud-based. So they would either have to come into the office to look at past data, or they would have to print it out and just have it with them in the field. So I think having that our field personnel be able to log in anywhere at any time and have access to any project and see what quantities are where, and being able to track those overruns or underruns was what kind of led us to pick Appia.
Thank you so much, Matt. George, you were also on the panel that made the final decision. Was there anything that ultimately pushed you to select Appia?
Well, over the next 5 years, well, we knew right now we do about $1 million to $1.2 million a month in construction estimates. So we realized that over the next 5 years, we were almost about doubling that amount of money and that amount of projects. So we were looking for something very comprehensive that would allow us to be more effective in construction management, because at that current time, all we were using were a series of Microsoft products between Word documents, Excel, even Teams to share data. And it was we needed something that was more comprehensive and less disjunctive.
That's perfect segue. So then I got brought in during the implementation phase, and you mentioned it's a large group. I know there were a lot of challenges just in implementing in kind of a short timeline with a project start. Today, we're going to be diving in mostly into the Deer Haven project because this is the first project that the Jefferson County team has taken from start through completion in Appia in 8 months. Looking back on that timeline, the Deer Haven project had a notice to proceed date in Q4 of 2021 with a construction start date on January 3rd of this year, 2022. And we started implementation just a little after that. Matt, I know you were closely tied to this project during that timeline. Could you maybe speak to some of the challenges of this overlapping schedule of implementing a new product to a team and while a project is actively underway?
Yeah. So when we first got Appia, I mean, it gave us the structure that we were looking for, but we really had to kind of build the program to meet our needs. And although it was kind of a bit of a learning process at first, we were able to quickly build the program to kind of reflect what our local DOT uses. So we wanted to use the kind of our DOT computer software to kind of mimic it, because a lot of our inspectors had already had experience dealing with that. So that we knew if we can make it kind of look similar to that all of our inspectors and everything would have a lot easier time to be able to figure it out and understand it. So while we was building Appia, I guess while I was constructing Appia, the work had already started on the Deer Haven project. So we proceeded on the project the same way that we had in the past, filling out daily reports by hand and then doing our monthly estimates in Excel spreadsheets. So I guess kind of once I had Appia to a point where I thought we could use it and benefit from it, we started going back and just putting those daily reports that we had printed out by hand and just backdating it into Appia. And that process was pretty easy and was very, very quick to do that. Add in all the pay items that we'd already technically paid for, and going back and putting those in Appia was really no issue at all. I think it was just the initial setup was a bit of a struggle, but I think in the end we're steadily adding and advancing and making it kind of our own program.
That's great. Yeah, and you bring up a great point. I remember working with your team on trying to replicate some of those workflows, templates, and how you had them in we'll say kind of prior to utilizing Appia phase, trying to mimic that and imitate it within Appia. This question I'll pose to Reed. What were some of the workflows that were important for your team to capture and replicate in this e-construction tool? And how did you sort of capture what those expectations were for future team members that might not have been on the team during this time?
Well, like Matt said, the daily work reports are our main field report each day, what's going on on our project. So really getting the inspector in the field to learn, just the basics of how to input a summary or a diary and the approval process, your line items, your pay items, going that route as opposed to pen and paper or like our local software, our local DOT software does. It was really a technology challenge more so than things that they necessarily hadn't seen before on documents.
Emily, can I add something?
Please do, George.
Okay. Matt and Reed both have hit on this, but and what I really can say, kind of sum it up, is that Appia allowed us to mold everything that we do, but that was so close to the functionality that we already had in place that not when you use the word replicate, now I don't think you just replicated the functions, you augmented us to the point where now not only are today that we're actually doing the same functionality, but we have more data we can pull from and organize it and generate reports so that if there's an issue or a problem or a curiosity, we can actually pinpoint data a lot quicker, cleaner, and easier. So not that we're substituting what we're doing with those third-party softwares that we talked about. We are augmenting and in my opinion, doing much more and getting much more data quicker and faster.
That's such a good point, George. And I think you really, hit on, that was something that I recall from your decision phase, that visibility and automation of data for reporting purposes and capturing kind of problems before they get out of hand. But you did also Reed, and you as well, George, had hit on a good point that there were a lot of people that were learning how to use this. This was a pretty large group comparatively to some of the other teams that we implement. And I know you were looking for something that multiple user groups could benefit from and utilize. Were there any challenges or retrainings or anything like that your team needed or benefited from?
So Infotech, they've been very helpful. We had a lot of Zoom meetings and a lot of training kind of webinars, if you will, and really through Zoom and phone and email, y'all have been able to answer most of our questions. So that's been great. Then also with the way that our projects that we kind of implemented it, we kind of staggered all, a lot of projects were staggered. So not everyone just had to dive straight in all at the same time. If people were finishing up projects, they just continued to do it the old way, writing their daily reports by hand or turning it in. And then if something wasn't going on in their project, they could look at different projects on Appia and kind of get an idea of what the other inspectors were doing before they had a project assigned to them that was, strictly Appia. So that helped a lot, being able to stagger everyone in a little bit at a time.
Yeah, that's great. Well, let's kind of not fast forward a little bit because this was going on at the same time, but let's talk about this Deer Haven project. So I know at the beginning we were retroactively adding daily reports. That project did come to a close on the beginning of this month, September 2020. So this will be a question for each of you. In that under construction phase, what stood out to you most as a benefit of using an e-construction tool? And maybe at what point did you notice this in this construction phase? Reed, I'll start with you.
Well, first and foremost, the Deer Haven project was in the woods, to say the least, so we did not have any service. So it was great to have access to something you could work on your laptop or your iPad, save it until you were able to get service again. And to be able to access that information out there, sometimes there's just one inspector out there, was really great. Really benefited us in that regard.
I love that. Thanks, Reed. George?
let me use the word communication. I'll bring a great example. On that particular project, we had an overrun of unclassified excavation. And it allowed Reed to sit there and see it not by the month, but by the day, and actually came up and talked. And we actually were able to take care of a problem before it became a problem. And we were able to now, instead of having an overrun on the whole entire contract, we were actually, in fact, Reed, correct me if I'm wrong, just because of the communication that we had and spotting problems ahead of schedule, we were under budget over this project, correct, Reed?
That's correct. About 50,000, I think.
Wow. Wow, that's exciting. Matt, how about for you?
So yeah, kind of the same thing they said, just being able to quickly find out information, whether I'm sitting in the office and I can look and see it, like they're just talking about the unclassified excavation. We could, type in unclassified and that item would pop up, see the history and see every day that it was put in and be able to say, okay, if we're doing this much per day, we can kind of foresee what we're going to do in the future.
That's great. And just to kind of clarify with the team, almost a clarifying question. Reed, you had mentioned it was out there. It was out in the woods. George, you were talking about the ability of it on a day-to-day basis. Was that in the item placements and overruns and data of the daily reports, or were there other aspects that were easy to see? Like progress on the job site or anything like that? Was it just being able to evaluate the data?
I think Reed can answer that question because he was the one that could see the information going in, being put in by the inspector, and he was looking at the daily reports. He was looking at the quantities going in, and when he probably opens up and looks at the bid items, he could actually see the percent complete. And he realized,
Right.
and again, Reed, speak to this because you were seeing your green bar being eat up real fast, right?
Right.
On completion.
Not only discussing it with fellow inspectors on site, but I can't tell you how many times I took my laptop to the contractor and showed them, hey, this is what we're expecting, for this pay item. It was nice and user friendly to see the green and the red, and easier to communicate in those regards rather than just numbers.
That's wonderful. So kind of summarizing, it sounds like this was a tool that allowed you to communicate and collaborate. It was a tool that gave increased accountability, not just from your inspectors, but also with the contractor, and efficiency in being able to pinpoint some of these overruns that allowed you to be proactive about it. That's really
confident. It allows to give us confidence in our information.
Yeah. Kind of backtracking, I know we had this project, it closed out in September 2020. So this was our first one that we had go through the whole life cycle, within an e-construction tool. But as we talked about before, it's a large group. Jefferson County is a large group. I know that there are other projects that your team is working on, not just the Deer Haven project. And kind of backtracking to the beginning, again, one of the things that your team was evaluating was something that improved not just the quality of your bids and reporting on that, but also automated bid analysis. Are there any other projects your team has managed since then that you've been able to look at that type of functionality, that pre-construction functionality? George, I'll hand it to you.
Yes, we have our ongoing contract paving projects. I think we have group 1, group 2, group 3, and they roughly about $3 to $4 million. And so we used Bid Express in order to obtain the bids, and we were allowed to take the data down and analyze it and look for unbalanced bids, look for where one particular contractor could be higher and lower, just to see if there's any issues or any problem prior to going to pre-construction. In fact, I say this, it adds value into it because we can look across the board and see how every contractor viewed a particular set of plans. And it would actually could show us where we had a problem right away on a particular pay item before we entered into a contract.
Interesting. Wow. Well, that was kind of what I wanted to wrap up in the under construction phase and managing projects. But I did kind of want to have a kind of a final thoughts. This one, a couple of questions, they'll be for each of you. I'll start with Matt. What did you wish you had maybe known before implementing an e-construction tool?
What I wish I would have known before.
Yeah, kind of think maybe a different way to phrase it is, let's say if you could talk to Matt a year ago, what would you tell Matt a year ago about, implementing an e-construction tool?
Well, I think one thing that's been very beneficial for us was being able to use give our contractors. We've started using giving our contractors a read-only account where they can't change anything, but they can see our quantities in there. And I think that's been super helpful, because where we was is just as far as monthly estimates go, and at the end of the month it'd just be me and the contractor arguing back and forth in the past, trying to figure out what they did at the beginning of the month. Well, now those contractors can look, and at the end of the day or end of the week, as our inspectors are putting these quantities in, the contractors contacting me and say, hey, yesterday we did this much instead of this much. And that process has gone a lot smoother, being able to continue the monthly estimates, and payments have, I feel like, gotten a lot faster now.
That's great. Kind of we didn't know that this was going to be a benefit, but that transparency and the relationship with the contractor has sped things up. Very interesting. Reed, how about for you?
The redundancy that we encountered prior to Appia, as far as how many times we would have to copy into certain folders the same either work report or documents or submittals, has drastically gone down. And I didn't expect that. I figured, it was going to be more just information based, but yet we were still going to have to do a little bit of the legwork. And but it has really helped. And I know that George always talks about it, but the main project page, just being able to see the current status, the amount paid, that first page is pure gold. You can click on it and it's pretty much everything you need to see, and you can continue on, go deeper if you need to in Appia, or go on to the next project.
That's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, incorporation of all of the pieces together, so you're not having to duplicate your efforts in all of these different former tools that you were keeping. George, how about for you?
A year ago, I would have told myself I didn't think it was this easy. A year ago, I was sitting, I believe, on Matt, it was on your floor next to your desk, pouring over the spreadsheets on a project, trying to figure out where we were on the budget. And Emily, every month it was a headache to do estimates and try to figure out where try to manage a construction project through spreadsheets. And like, I'm gonna echo what Reed just said, that the dashboard, I can flip open, hit the dashboard, and I have instantaneous information. I even know how much has been paid out to that month. In fact, I love the fact is that I had one of the requests given to me, which I couldn't have done a year ago, is that how much work on a particular project did we do between May the 20th to the end of the month? And easily, I just ran the itemized reports out and just queued in those days. And I was just like, a year ago, it would take me about a half a day to a whole day just to figure it out.
Wow. Yeah, that time save of not having that. Yeah, you paint such a good picture sitting on Matt's floor, just having this I love that. Well, this one's for, I'll say anyone, could be everyone. So I'll leave it open to who wants to take this one. But you were talking to an agency that was considering an e-construction tool. What would you say to them?
From an office viewpoint, it's been amazing. We're no longer struggling to fix rounding errors from an Excel spreadsheet where, you know, it's rounded to 4 decimal places. So now we're 2 pennies off at the end. It's been exact and precise on all of our payments, and it's really sped up things and made just everything a lot easier and faster.
From an administrative point, it allows us from a monetary amount, because we have so much encumbered funds, that we can actually see the drawdowns that we need each month, and have more confidence and feel secure about what we're doing and what we're asking for. Because again, we're asking for several hundreds of thousands of dollars for each individual project, and it's auditable. So that, because each year we get audited by the state, and we can now hand them over a document that we have high yield of confidence in.
I love that.
Yeah, the report section, and I probably should have mentioned it earlier, has been really great. I guess it's hitting more on the instant information, one-stop shop for your information on a project. But the report generation, all the different options there, has been super helpful. And whether it's an in-house meeting, whether it's, you know, a field meeting with contractors or other inspectors, just having that quick and easy. All right, for example, before this meeting, I've been working on work days and going through it with a contractor. I'm able to print out all the work days in a report and go through and make my notes and send them, and we can compare and contrast. That's just, it eliminates a lot of headache and frustration, to say the least.
That's wonderful. I'll kind of pose this question, but it's very open-ended. Was there anything that we didn't cover today that is worth noting? It's okay if no, we got to all of it, but is there any final thoughts on e-construction and implementation of an e-construction tool?
One of the drawbacks is
Too convenient? Is that what you said?
Because we'll sit there when someone asks us a question, we'll flip open our phone or flip open an iPad and go right to Appia and start getting the information. And so people come up and start asking random information on particular projects. In fact, and Matt can testify this, we had a deputy director said they comes in our office saying, "Hey, why isn't this an app? Why isn't this an app?" And I'm sitting there going, well, because no one's asked us, or, you know, and the beauty of it is, it's not just how we like it and we see it. Other people who are non-users see us having the ease and the information. So I mean, that's, to me, that speaks volumes, not only of the software, but the workflow and the data that we can glean from.
So it's made your job so easy that people are giving you more work to do, is how it sounds.
That's
yeah.
the county way.
Careful what you wish for, kind of a thing. That's great. Anyone else? Anything else to add before we close out today? Wonderful. Well, I'll just recap it really carefully, but I'm looking back at my notes, and it's hard to summarize all of this, because we talked about just quality control and transparency, accuracy of information, and confidence in that data and that time save. But what it really boiled down to was that, providing improved reporting and greater visibility into the project progress, not just for you, but also for your contractors and other people that are involved in each of these projects. That centralized project data, a single source of truth, and the ability to have that collaboration, even when projects are really far out in the woods, away from Wi-Fi access. And then that pre-construction benefit of improving that bid process and that automated bid analysis functionality in the pre-construction phase. A lot of great stuff here. Matt, George, Reed, I want to give you a big thank you for being here today. I so appreciated your time and your knowledge on this. I can't say thank you enough. It's so good to get to sync up with y'all again. All right, and that's all we had today. Again, thanks everyone for joining us, and have a really wonderful day.